Hello, what is up guys? It's EvilDuosArm here, back with another Unreal Engine 4 tutorial. In today's video, we're going to be looking at adding functionality to our merchant that we created in the last episode. Basically, we're going to make it so you can open up the shop and upgrade one of your character stats. The stat we're going to upgrade is health. If you want to change any other stats in game or any other items that you want to upgrade or downgrade on your character, this is going to be how you do it. So I'm only going to show you how to do the health menu. If you want to do anything else, you can figure it out based on what you're going to see in the video today. It's really a simple setup. It's just going to be more so organizing the menu and making it all understandable. And real quick before we begin, if you are new to this series or you've been watching the series right along, make sure you're subscribed so you stay updated when more videos in this series come out. So without further ado, let's get into it. The first thing we're going to want to do is head over to our save game YouTube file. This can be found in our content browser. All the way at the bottom, we will have a save game, and in it we have save game YouTube. Double click on that sucker, and in here we're going to add a few variables. So let's just open this up to maximum size. So the first variable we need to add is going to be called health. So we're going to show you how to modify the health in this video. So health by default is a float value. So we're going to name this one health, and we're going to change the variable type to float. So if you've gone ahead and named this health and named it a float, we're going to hit compile and save. So we have a health variable that's saved. We also want the default value to be 100, which I believe is what we set it to when we first created our character. So compile and save and make sure that that default value is set to 100.0. After you've done that, you're going to want to head back over to our main level area over here and make sure you're loaded into the level with the merchant. So for that, it's going to be the hub world level that we created in the last video. So make sure you open that up so we have that here. The next thing you're going to want to do is head on over to your character. So our 2D side-scroller character, which is located in the character folder, 2D side-scroller character. Double click that to open up our character. And here we're going to look for the event begin play option. So that should be around here. Right here is where our event begin play is, so it's in this line right here. So right now we have it when we begin play. We're going to create our character, create the HUD, add the HUD to the viewport, do all that great stuff, and this is where it ends. So actually we're going to take this whole line and add it a bit more room, because anytime you have any variables you're going to want to adjust on the character, you're going to have to add it to this. So anytime you want to do any of these upgrade menu items, you'll need to tie it off of this event begin play. So let's make it as easily accessible as possible. The next thing we want to do is we want to take our health variable and we want to set that to the health that's in the save game. So to do that, we're going to need to load the save game and go through all the coding of that. The easiest way to do that is going to be to head over to our save game folder and look at level 1 or level 2 load. So let's just double click on one of those and we can just straight up copy the code from these. So let's just drag, click, Control C, head back in over to our character and Control V. So now that we've dropped this in here, let's go through it for anyone who hasn't seen this being done or is watching this at a later occasion. But basically, all we're going to do is create a save game object. So to create this code, it's create a save game object. Then we go and we create a variable, which we're going to have to recompile here because it's not going to like it because it's not actually in the variable list over here. So we're going to have to fix that later. We want to check if a save game exists in the slot for save game YouTube, which is the save file that we set up over here. This file right here of the save game YouTube. If it does, then we can move on. If it does not, then we need to create that save game slot and continue with our lives. So that's a nice little bonus here as well. It's going to check to see if it exists, and if it doesn't, then it's going to create the save game slot for us. So that's pretty nice, but it should already exist at this point. And if it doesn't exist, our health is going to automatically default to the 75 health that we set it to at the start. But anyway, after we load the game from the slot, we're going to cast that save game, create another variable, and this is what we want to actually mess with here. So we're going to delete this box right here. So the first thing we need to do is we need to set the health. So we're going to click this, drag it off, and we want to set health. What we want to do is we want to set the health to the health value from this. So if we drag off and type get health from this save game instance, drag it up to here, we're going to set our health variable from this to the health variable from that. Connect these two, and that will basically handle that. We also don't want to open a level at the end of this because we took this from the level opening code. Drag these nodes in, and you're probably going to get an error as soon as we do that. Yes, it's right here. This error, this save game YouTube variable does not exist. So what you're going to want to do is delete this variable, and then we're going to promote to variable. Promote to variable, which is right here. And this new variable has not been named. We're going to name this save game instance. All right, and then we just got to connect those nodes back into what they were already connected into before. Once again, this node also doesn't like to be called upon, so we're going to delete him. Drag off of this and promote it to a variable, and save that as save game instance 2, or whatever will distinguish it between the two different variables. Save game instance 2. Also going forward, since we already have these variables, we won't need to do these steps later, so that's pretty cool, and everything can actually be pulled off of this section. But anyway, so we have these two things all plugged in, and if we hit compile and save now, it should be okay and all is right with the Cosmos. Oh, do need to drag this in as well though. So compile and save. So now our player's health is going to be set to whatever value is saved in this save game YouTube folder for the health. So that's cool, and if we hit play, you're going to notice that our health bar is going to be full because we're pulling the value from the health bar from the health value in the game, as opposed to the typical 75 when we had those nodes connected. So this is all working fine and dandy. So we can go ahead and stop our little simulation and head back into our 2D side-scroller character. And actually we're pretty much done in the 2D side-scroller character for this point, so let's head back over to the save game YouTube. In here we need to create a new variable, and we want this new variable to be called max health. So we want to be able to scale our character's max health. It's going to be a float, which it should default to since we created a float previously. However, we want the default value for this to also be 100. So compile and save. What we're going to do at this point is we're going to have the max health become the player's value that you can change by purchasing upgrades from the market. So what's going to happen is that this max health value is going to be what you can buy from the merchant. You can increase this max health value by buying upgrades with the coin that we created in a previous video. So compile and save this, and then the next thing we need to do is head back in to our widgets menu, which is at the bottom of the content browser, and we'll head over to the HUD. So inside of our HUD menu, we already have a code for getting our percentage of health, so what we're going to do is head over to that, head over to the graph, and it is get %0 that deals with health. So inside of this get %0, we have the health coming from the character, so that's a-okay, but what we also have is a divide by 100. We want to change this divide by 100 to divide by the maximum health statistic. So to do that, we're going to do the same exact thing that we've already done, and I'll just actually type it out this time so you can see it being done. So we're going to create save game object. The save game class is going to be save game YouTube. Off of this, we're going to promote to a variable, so promote to a local variable, and this new local variable we're going to rename, and the local variables pop over on the left, to save game instance. Off of the save game instance, we're going to look for does save game exist. The slot name is going to be YouTube or save game YouTube. YouTube. It's the same exact thing that you named this file up here. So save game YouTube. Off of this, we're going to have a branch. Connect this. If the save game does not exist, it's going to be save game to slot. What we're going to save is the save game instance variable, and the slot name is going to be save game YouTube. If it does exist, then we're going to load game from slot. The slot name is save, I almost spelled save wrong, game YouTube. We are then going to cast to the save game instance, so cast to save game YouTube. Drag in this node here. As save game YouTube, we're going to create another local variable. This local variable we'll call save game instance 2. Save game instance 2. Off of save game instance 2, we're going to pull the max health, and we want to get the max health. And then that node is what's going to connect in over to this node over here. So we're going to go like this, drag it in over here, and compile and save. This node's not actually executing because I didn't plug it into anything, so we need to drag this node over here, so you can control click to bring this over to here, and then actually you can just regular click and drag this node in here, compile and save, and now everything should be fine. So the next thing we're going to do is head back over to save game YouTube, and the max health, we're going to set a default value of 150 just to show you that this is working. Compile and save, head back to our hub world and hit play. You will see that our bar is about 2/3 full because we have our health value set to 100 that we saved, and we have our health maximum at 150. If we go ahead and stop this and we go to save game YouTube and set the default value to 100, compile and save, and hit play back over here, you will see that our bar is full. So that bar is controlling the max scaling of our health. So the next thing we need to do is actually create the widget that the player is going to interact with. This is going to get pretty complicated pretty quick, so I will try to go slowly as possible through this portion. So we're going to navigate to the widgets folder on our content browser, and in the menus folder we're going to have all our different menus. What we want to do is we want to right click, user interface, widget blueprint. We're going to name this one merchant menu, and we might change that to upgrade menu later as the game develops. We'll see where we actually end up, but anyway, merchant menu for now. Control S to save this thing before we get going. The next thing we're going to want to do is we're going to want to add a border. So click border and drag that into the plane here. And we'll make it about this big. Looks good. Sure. Drag our little center thing to center it on the screen. The border color we're going to go with is going to be more of a black color, so scroll down the list until we get to the appearance menu, and under the appearance menu, navigate to the brush color, and we're going to make this like a grayish color, so okay there to the gray. So brush color under the appearance tab will bring us this gray looking color. The next thing we want to do is add a horizontal box. So type in horizontal into the palette and drag the horizontal box onto the border so it's parented underneath the border. We're going to need a few different things for this menu, but the first one we're going to go with is going to be a button. So let's drag a button onto the horizontal box. And then after the button, we want a text, so make sure you don't pick text box, pick text. Drag that off of the horizontal box. And then additionally, we're going to want another text, so drag that off of the horizontal box. And then we're going to want another text, but we want this text to be parented to the button, so make sure that this text falls under the button menu. Then we want another text that's going to go in front of this button, so drag this off of the horizontal box, but then drag it in front of the button. So we want to have that text block in front of our button that has a text block on it, followed by a text block and a text block. This text block is really easy. This is our third text block down on the list. So this text block, we're just going to name it level. So this is just the current level of the text block. So very easy, throw a couple spaces after it to make a little bit of spacing, and now it says level in there. What we're going to want to do with all of these buttons, so you can do that now, is center them. So click all of the centering options for all of these. So center, 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 and center, center. So that's going to put everything centered on this menu. The text box to the left is also going to be a very easy option. So this is the text box parented directly underneath the horizontal box, the far left text block. This text block we're going to go ahead and call upgrade. Now let's just call it health. Health stat. We're going to put a colon, a couple spaces to make it space out a little bit better. So that's going to be health stat. Then we have a text box on a button. So the text box on the button is just going to read upgrade. So just type in upgrade and throw a space either side of it so it has a little bit of padding on either side. So it's sort of centered in there. So we have our health stat, we have an upgrade, we have a level menu, and actually let's put a little bit of spacing before the level as well so it spaces it a little bit better. So we have our health stat, we have an upgrade button, we have a level, and now we want to bind this text block to the current level of the health upgrade. So compile and save this and head back over to your save game YouTube folder. In here we're going to add another variable, and this is going to be called health stat level. So enter to save that, and this is only going to be an integer. We don't need to go too crazy with that. So change the variable type to integer, compile, and save. Head back over to our merchant menu. Now we need to add one more button and one more text block to this, so go back to our palette and type in button, and we're going to drag that parented off of this horizontal box for now. That's going to be all the way to the right. And then under this button we also need another text box, so we're going to add text, but make sure you pick text and not text box. So add that text onto the button. This text block is going to be called escape or leave or quit or whatever you want to call it. And then the button itself needs to be centered on the menu. So center, center. Same thing with this, center, center. So we also want to have some spacing between this text block and the last text block. So we're going to add an item called a spacer. This spacer is going to get parented to the horizontal box. The spacer is going to go between the final text box and the button. And then this spacer, we can increase its size to whatever we want. We want to increase the X by a good amount, so let's try 500. Sure, that spaces it plenty. So now that the escape button is way the heck over here. So compile and save everything before we go any further. Okay, so let's start by binding this text block first. So click on the text block. This is the text block. It's in the middle of our screen. You can see which one I clicked on. And we're going to go ahead and click bind, create binding. So we're going to do this the easy and lazy way. Head on over to our HUD that we had just done, and we're going to copy this exact line of code that we already copied or already created. So just Control-C that sucker right here. And drop it into the merchant menu of HUD. So in here, we're going to need to promote this to a variable, so go ahead and delete that right off the bat. You already know the drill on this, so I'm not going to keep repeating it. Promote to a local variable, and we're going to just call that save game instance svgi. Works for me. Drag this over to here. Click this in like that. Same thing with this one. We need to delete this and promote this to a variable. Promote to a local variable. svgi2. And we want to drag off of this, and we want to get health stat level. Health stat level is what we want to plug into here. Compile and save that, and then we just need to drag this in. Well, actually, I guess we can just delete it by clicking Alt-click. Drag this node in here, and drag this node in here. So this is going to print the current level of our health upgrade. That's also going to determine how high we can upgrade the health stat, which is what we're going to do next. So head back over to the designer tab of our merchant menu and click on this upgrade button. So this upgrade button is going to become a bit more complicated, and this is probably the most complicated part of this video, so here's what we're going to do. On the Events tab, right above my head, you can see an on-clicked option. Go ahead and click that. We want to copy in the same exact code that we already had here because we're going to be using this, but not in the exact same manner. So go ahead and drag this over to the right of the button so we can have it in a pretty linear flow. So once again, we need to delete these variables and rebind them. So right-click, promote to variable, and we're going to call it SVGI, just because, oh, I already have an SVGI in here, so save game instance. Save game instance works for me. Drag this sucker down here. Drag this in over here. Same thing with this one over here. We need to delete it. Right click, promote to variable, and we want to promote that to save game instance 2. Save game instance 2. Okay, so we have the game loaded. Basically, we can do anything off of that save game instance. So what we want to do is we want to set the player's max health whenever you click this button, dependent on how much money you have. So we're going to subtract from the money total, and then we're going to use that health level stat to determine how much money gets subtracted. So that's why this is going to get complicated pretty quick. So we're going to need to get a few variables. We need to get the health stat level. We need to get the max health stat. And we also need to get the money variable. So get money, I think is what we called it. Yep, we called it money. So these are our 3 variables we're going to be using. So first we need to decide if the player has enough money, and we're going to do that with this health stat level. So if you compile and save this and head over to our save game YouTube, we actually need to make sure that this health stat level defaults to level 1 because we're going to be using a power rule here. So compile and save that. Head back over into our merchant menu. So what we want to do is see if our money value is higher than a number of the health stat times some value. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the health stat level and we're going to multiply it by 2. So times the little asterisk key, and we're going to do integer times integer, and that integer is going to be 2. Compile and save. As you get going, you're going to realize that this is a really low number to be scaling for the health upgrade, so you'll probably want to mess with this integer as you go. But this will be good enough to get our system working so you know how that it is in fact working. Next thing we want to do is we want to see if this number is greater than the amount of money that the player has. So integer greater than integer. The other integer we're going to be comparing to is the money value that the character has, and now we're going to add a branch. So connect that and connect this node over here. So if this is false, we're not going to do anything. This would be where you could put up like a little text box that popped up saying need more money or anything like that. But we're not going to deal with that right now. We're going to just go ahead and head off of the true. So if the amount of money the player has is greater than the health stat level times 2, then what we're going to do is increase the player's max health. So we're going to set max health of the player. So we can drag off of this menu here, and we're going to set max health. And the max health we're going to set is the current max health. And we're going to type in a plus on the keyboard to float plus float. And we're going to add 5 to that. So every time you make a health upgrade, you're going to get 5 more points. And we're going to set that to the next max health. The next thing we're going to do is compile and save this first just to make sure nothing happens. But the next thing we're going to do is increment the health stat level by 1. So we're going to take the health stat level, which we have already, and we're going to hit the plus key, and we're going to do integer plus integer, and we're going to increase that by 1. We're then going to set that to the new health stat. So set health stat level. And if you missed what I did there, I dragged off of our save game instance over here, dragged off and pulled set health level, or set health stat level. So connect this node, and we're going to set the health stat to 1. So basically what's going to happen now is our first upgrade is level 1 times 2 is 2. So if you have more than 2 money, you can make the upgrade. The next level, it's going to be 2, so it's 2 times 2. So if you have more than 4, you can make the upgrade. The next level, it's going to be 3, so if you have more than 6, so basically it's just doubling each time or increasing by 2 each time. That's why you're probably going to want to scale this value increasingly instead of so small, but just for testing purposes so we can see that the scaling is working. Okay, so compile and save everything. The next thing we want to do is we want to deduct the amount of money that the player has by the amount of money that they should have been charged for the stealth hat upgrade, the stealth health stat upgrade. So to do that, we're going to set the money. So drag off of this node and type in set money. And the money value is going to be equivalent to the current money minus, so integer minus integer, this variable, the health stat times 2. So we can drag that node off of there. We can drag off of multiple nodes. So what we're doing is we're taking the current money, subtracting it by the health stat times 2, and setting it to our current money. And connect that node in. So now next time we try to hit this button, it's going to check the current money value, and then it's going to have decreased, and if it decreased far enough, we won't be able to make the upgrade. So compile and save. So this happens every time, and it should be okay. The only other thing left to do is to save game to slot. And that's really simple. All you're going to do is type in save game to slot. The save game we're going to save to slot is going to be this variable over here, so drag it over to connect it into this. Connect this node, type in save game YouTube, the same one that we've been using for everything, compile and save. So now this is saved into the slot. The only thing left to do is to destroy this widget, so head back over to the designer tab, go over to the escape button that we created earlier, and scroll down to the menu once again. We're going to add, I clicked on the text box, but make sure you click on the button. You can get the button over here as well. And unclicked. So when we click this button, it's going to be really simple. All we want to do is remove from parent. So just type in remove from parent, and that's it. This remove from parent node right here. Compile and save. So that's just going to get rid of this widget when we try to open it up, or try to close it rather when we click the escape button. Now we're going to head back over to our 2D side scroller character and head over to this bit of coding that we did the other day, which was the on component begin overlap, press the E key, it's going to run the interact widget, blah, 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 blah. What we want to do at this point is we want to create widget, and the widget we want to create is going to be the widget that we had just made, the merchant menu. And we want to add this to the viewport, so drag off of this is add to viewport, and compile and save. Now the next things we need to do are a few more, so we're going to drag this over a little bit so it doesn't collide with the coding that we had done already today. So after the add to viewport, what we're going to want to do is show the mouse cursor. So to do that, drag off this menu and see this context sensitive box, uncheck that. So what we're going to do first is show mouse cursor. And we want to set the show mouse cursor. We want to set this to true. We want to see the mouse cursor. So compile and save. And we actually need a player controller for this. So right click and type in get player controller. So this option right here, get player controller, the green one, drag that in, and now it should be all happy and fine and not yelling at us. So now it's time for me to save you like 400 hours of time. Not really, but about 40 minutes of messing around figuring out why this wouldn't work. So the first thing we need to do to make this like actually work is we need to head over to the designer tab in our merchant menu. So head over to the designer tab, go to the escape button once again, and this button right here, and scroll down to the on click option so we can view what we did for this. So over here on this on click button that goes away here, what we want to do is we actually want to, before we remove it from parent, we want to hide the mouse cursor. So to do that, we're going to type in get player controller, and once again we want the green option right there, not the blue one. And from here we want to show mouse cursor. Oh, not get though, we want to set. So set show mouse cursor. So set show mouse cursor, and we want to set that to false. So drag this node in, compile and save. So that's just going to hide the mouse when we go ahead and click on the menu, which is something that I was not figuring out why it wasn't going away. It's right there. The other thing that we want to change is going to be on our designer tab once again, and it's on this upgrade button. So click on the upgrade button, go to the button itself, and make sure you click on the view options here. So on this button, what we want to do is this bit of coding right here, I kind of goofed up. You can either, I did this backwards basically, so you can either drag this node to the false, which would make this statement work, or you can switch these two inputs to the other way around. Basically, this should be the inverse of what I wrote. So the easiest way to do it is just to drag that node to the false. What I'm saying here is that if the player has more money, if the cost of the upgrade is more than the money they have, then they can upgrade. I want it if the cost of the upgrade is more than the player has, then they cannot upgrade. So that's why we've got to switch that option right there. So my mistake on coding that, I do apologize, but dropping it to the false will work. So now, if we go to our hub world and we click our play button, and we head over to this, and we walk up to our guy, and we hit E, welcome to the shop, it brings up the shop. If we click the escape button, it goes away, and our mouse goes away. So that all works, and if we hit the E shop to talk to him, and we hit the upgrade button, you will see that our health bar is increasing, but our health is not increasing because our health is staying at 100. Also, our money, you can see, is continually to increment down, and the increment is increasing each time we click the upgrade. It's going by more and more and more and more each time, because that health level is being multiplied by 2, so you keep subtracting that amount from it. So the health stat increases. We basically have everything working that we want working in this. So that is where we are going to end the video. There's a lot of polishing that needs to happen with this whole system, which we'll do in a later video, but this video is up to almost a half hour already, and I don't want to keep beating it down. But basically, we have everything that you could possibly want to know about creating character stats that you upgrade. So any other stat you want to upgrade in the game, like your stamina or the amount of kunai that the character has, all of those things can be upgraded from the same exact menu. Just add another row to your border that you have here, this border that we created in the video. Add another row above or below, and you will be all set to go. You can just put the exact same information in, and all you've got to do is change the coding from, instead of health, to whatever variable you want to do here. So back into this merchant menu. So if you want to do the number of kunai, you need a kunai stat level, a maximum kunai variable, and a total money thing. Subtract from the money, create your own equation for how much that upgrade costs, and basically you have everything you need to be able to customize your character in any way that you want. So anyway guys, I hope you found this video useful. If you did like the video, make sure to leave a like. Check out some of the other videos in the series if you've missed any. There's a lot of videos. I think we're up to 17 now, so really check them all out. And as always, thank you so much for watching. I will see you at the next video. Peace.